I just really learned how to love myself differently. And that has led to so much happiness because it all starts with me. My happiness all starts with me. And if I can really love and accept myself, I'm unstoppable.
Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy. And oh my gosh, guys, today is going to be a phenomenal day. We have with us Sadie Marie, the host of Sadie's Divorced and Happy. Sadie, I am so starstruck to have you here today. I am so
So,
excited. Thank you for being here, my friend.
well, I am so excited too, Dr. Taryn. So thank you for the invitation and happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well, my friend. Okay, I just got to talk about why I love your podcast so much. Number one, you have the word happy in your title, which
I
is
do.
amazing. And I love that this is one of your missions in life is to focus on happiness and bring happiness to your family and to yourself. And first of all, that's just so aligned with my mission as
It sure
well.
is. We're twinning already.
Look at us. And also, I thanked you before we started here, but I do just want to thank you on the air and say thank you for bringing this hope and resilience to women who are going through divorce, are fearful of divorce, of facing divorce, who have come through divorce. You speak for so many women and you are inspiration for so many women. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you. And I'm inspired by so many women. So we give each other and the boost and it helps. Sure helps, doesn't it?
And that's the point. That's the whole
Yes.
point is to
Yes.
support one another. So
Yes.
share with my audience, please. Tell me your journey. Tell me about what you've just been through and how you came up with this podcast and your mission behind it.
Sure. Well, when I was going through my divorce, I was not my best self. And for me, that was such a low point in my life. And then once I got through my divorce, I experienced what I love to talk about, which is the honeymoon stage after divorce. Are you familiar with this?
No, you have to let me know what is the honeymoon
Okay, well,
stage?
it is first of all, it's so delicious because it is when everything in your life just becomes all the senses are all of the senses all of the senses come back, meaning everything you see is more beautiful, everything you taste is more delicious. The simple things bring you such peace and joy again. I remember when I was in my honeymoon stage, I would just sit in my kitchen nook and I would eat a clementine, and just the citrus taste of the orange was
Mhm.
just so satisfying. I mean, I was just like, wow, this is the best orange I've ever eaten in my life, because I was just in such a free space. I had so much energy again to enjoy the simple things and to appreciate the view from my window and the sun on my face when I'd be sitting in my kitchen eating this orange. And then
Mhm.
I would, listen to Lionel Richie, and I would just feel just so content. Where when I was going through my divorce, I was just so in my head, I
Yeah.
wasn't in my body. And so after my divorce, being in my honeymoon stage and just being in my body and having all of my senses heightened again, where everything, like I said, just looked better and more beautiful and tasted better, and old songs from my past just brought me so much like joy again, and I was just falling in love with life and myself again. So the honeymoon stage was really a catalyst for my podcast, because I wanted, all of the women that are maybe in unhappy marriages, or men too, to realize, like, after you get through this really difficult choice of going through a divorce, there is such a brighter side just waiting for you, with just so much happiness and possibility.
Mm.
And when you can really allow yourself to find parts of yourself that you'd forgotten, or to discover new parts of yourself that you hadn't had energy to even think about or discover or look into, because you were so consumed by a divorce. So that was that was the catalyst. My honeymoon stage was the catalyst for my podcast.
Now, I wonder, is the honeymoon stage inevitable for everybody, or was this a choice that you made to see from that perspective?
Sure.
The Because I think that whether you're going through a divorce or not, we
Mhm.
always have this choice.
You really do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course it was a choice. It was a choice to think, focus on myself. It was a choice
Mhm.
to have that point of view. But I think even if, see, I chose my divorce. I actually was the one that wanted the divorce. And I think sometimes when people don't initially, they don't choose their divorce, they initially have some more grief perhaps than someone who
Mhm.
does choose a divorce. So, but I think even in those situations, you can realize, okay, I did not choose to be divorced, but I can choose what my next chapter looks like for me. I can choose what I decide to focus on. And even though I chose my divorce, it didn't mean that I had completely overcome some bitterness that I had around my ex and my marriage. And that was another choice to really do my own inner work so that when I was feeling more victimized, so to speak, that I could get to a place where I decided I didn't want to think that way anymore about myself. I didn't want to give so much power to somebody else and to really focus on, what do I want to think about now? What do I want my focus to be on now? And it wasn't about my ex anymore and the things he didn't do or did do, or the things that I didn't do in my marriage. It was really a time, that first year after my divorce, my honeymoon stage, where just allowing myself simple things, really pouring a lot of love into myself and to my kids, having some new adventures, some new discoveries allowed me to kind of get over that victim mentality that I had for so long in my marriage that just really slowed me down.
And as you said, gave your power away. So this was almost like
Absolutely.
a taking back of that power again.
Absolutely. And it's,
Mm,
it's such a better place to be in when you're
mhm.
not giving your power to an outside source. We do that a lot. I think, especially as women, we're conditioned in relationships, especially, you're not in your head. So you maybe resonate with this, but I think a lot of women were just so conditioned that we need to look outside of ourselves for gratification, affirmation, power, confirmation that we're okay, when really what I've learned since my divorce is happiness is found in just a self-acceptance and appreciation, and taking myself a little less seriously, which has been a
Mm.
lot of fun, I'll tell you that much.
Amazing. So how do you look at relationships differently now?
Oh, that I love talking about that. I love talking about how I like to date differently, I say, since my divorce. So after my divorce, I just allowed dating to be a time where I could learn about myself. I
Mm.
could relearn what I was wanting to have in relationships. And again, not take myself too seriously. So just allowing myself to have fun getting ready for a date. I mean, you can tell I like big hair. I'm a product of the 90s. What can I say? So I mean, it's like getting ready for a date and having fun with it and not being overly concerned about if this person will accept my physical self. As long as I felt good about it, that's what mattered most.
Mm.
And when I would go on a date, I really wanted to leave the date feeling good about how I presented myself, meaning I'd leave a date thinking, wow, I really liked how I showed up for myself. And
Mm.
it wasn't about, gee, I really hope this person likes me. I hope this person calls me again. I mean, sometimes, of course, I wanted that. Sometimes I was relieved if he didn't. Uh, but mostly it was, wow, I really like how I showed up. I showed up, I was present, I asked some great questions, I listened, I had fun, I didn't take myself so seriously. And that's what mattered. When I was in my 20s, what mattered would be, gee, will I get a boyfriend out of this?
Mm.
And now I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm good. I just I don't need a traditional boyfriend. I am looking for connection, but not a traditional boyfriend. And I think another great benefit after divorce when it came to dating for me, Dr. Taryn, is I allowed myself to date younger men. I know, isn't that delicious? I know.
One of the things that I've picked up on as you're speaking is this idea of presence. And you mentioned
Mm,
it when you were eating that clementine in your
mhm.
kitchen and what you valued about a good date instead of the validation someone else gives you. Well,
Right,
how present were you for
right.
yourself? And you have this quote on your website. You say, believing in possibility is equally as important as being totally present. I'd love for you to talk more about that. We know the value of presence. We know the value of being so present in the moment, even when it comes to sex, right? When we'll talk about
Mhm,
that too. But
mhm.
the value of being present in the moment, there's nothing like it. So tell us a little bit about this equal importance of possibility.
Well, I am a business owner as well. And so being a business owner, I've had my own business. I'm a photographer. I've had my business for 20 plus years. I am always thinking ahead. I am always thinking of what do I have to do next? And I have a
Mm,
long list I have to get through every day. And so I have always been able to easily focus on big ideas and possibility. That has been easy for me. What I've struggled with more so in my adult life is being present
mm,
and not being so concerned about the next thing I have to do. What's next on the list to check off? So, what I've learned to practice a lot more of is being really present, present with my children, present with friends, present with myself. And so, like, forcing myself to sit and do nothing and
mm,
enjoying it. It has been definitely a new a discipline in my life since my divorce because I did not find value in presence, and I'm sure that affected my relationship, my marriage. And I know in relationships now I have been told, like, Sadie, you could be a little more present. It's like, I know I can, I need to be, I want to be, because it is so rewarding when you can just, like we're doing right now, just really being present in this moment and listening and responding and getting an idea about the next question to ask or having curiosity around something that someone just told you. And I find people so intriguing, but I still at the same time sometimes struggle to be present in relationships, especially with myself. And I think when you're in an unhappy marriage, you've obviously lost being present with yourself, because once you can be
mm,
present with yourself, you can really sit with the truth a lot more easily than when you're always going and busy and distracting yourself. And I'm sure for me, it was a coping skill that I learned to kind of manage my unhappiness. And once I got to the to the other side of my divorce, and I could really focus on my happiness, I really found a deeper value in being present. And
mm.
that's just been really exciting. I still am working at it though, Dr. Tarryn. But I do see a totally different value on being present than I ever used to.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how one of those skills, the dreamer and the person, the visionary has such a comfort with that possibility.
Yes,
And sometimes that can be what's also your Achilles heel, that superpower of being able to
absolutely.
see the possibility. It's so fascinating to me. How do you now, as a mom, and in this world of dating and running a business and being fiercely independent, how do you manage this being present as a mom? If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know.
Well, I manage it by actually allotting time every night. We have family time. I have 2 children, and my son is 12 and my daughter is 10. We have 90 minutes. He gets to pick for half an hour what he wants the family to do. She gets to pick for half an hour what she wants the family to do, and I get to pick. And it's practicing, we don't always get to do maybe what we want to do all the time, but sometimes we do things because the family wants to do it. And
Hmm.
also when you're picking, the other people get to be supportive and positive and present and not be complaining that, oh, I didn't want to do that or I didn't want to do that. That's the exchange, right? So it's really trying to teach them that it's a gift we're giving each other, our time and our presence and our appreciation for what the other has, planned and what they're interested in.
Hmm. That's
So that's
beautiful.
something that we do that I think has really brought us a lot closer together.
Yeah. Have you noticed that your relationship with your children has changed since the divorce?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so demonstrative. I mean, my
Mhm.
children and I just have such a deep love for each other, and also just how we communicate more honestly. Because for my daughter, for example, the divorce has been very hard on her, and it still continues to be. So she's 10 years old, so she was 7 when we got divorced. And for her, there was just so much grief that she couldn't process at such a young age.
Yeah.
And so now she's finally able to process it more 3 years later. And so she's still grieving, and she might be grieving her whole life. And so there's space for that. And one time she was really having a hard time. And I was, listening and just wanting to be present, just hearing her how she felt, affirming her feelings, and just saying, honey, I want you to always tell me how you feel because I will always have space for your feelings. But at the same time, mommy gets to be happy too. We can have sadness and happiness at the same time. And
That's
so I think
beautiful.
that was really kind of profound for both of us to have that honesty. Like, you get to have all your feelings, and I get to have my feelings, and we get to honor where we're at. And every day, it's a little different, right? She doesn't have grief like that every day, of course, but just being free to feel and have those conversations.
I love that so much, Sadie, because if you think the alternative would be feeling shame and guilt and ownership of her feelings and making it all about you and
Right,
not being present. How
right,
we do that so easily, we as
right,
mothers, we tend to take on all the responsibility of our children's emotions, and really what that's doing is making it about us again.
right,
Instead of just having the awareness and the presence in the moment and letting her just have her feelings and not making it a story or an ownership of your actions or
right.
your that's
Yeah,
beautiful. There's
she's her
so
own
much power.
person with her own
Yeah.
experience, and I'm never gonna take that away from her.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with
oh,
us. I
sure,
appreciate it.
sure, of course.
Did this I mean, to me, that seems so incredibly, aware. Did it take you a while to get to that point, or did you just automatically feel that way? Were you just so happy that you couldn't put the happiness down?
Well, I remember another clear conversation where it was really early into my divorce, and I
Mm,
had this mission, like, happiness is a choice. Let's focus on, I was very much preaching the tone of, we are what we think. If you focus on the
mhm.
happy, you'll feel happier. And it was kind of that movie Sadness, or goodness, that Disney Pixar movie Inside Out.
Oh,
Where
yes.
all those characters, remember, there's joy and there's anger. I love Anger with his little tie and his flame that comes blowing out of his head, and then there's sadness, and
Mm,
how the character finally allowed herself to feel sad because she was trying to be happy for her parents
mm,
after they moved, and she just couldn't do it anymore. She was just so sad. And so my daughter was finally like, "Look, mom, we get to be sad."
mm.
So that was just another great honest conversation where it's like, yeah, absolutely. For me, this is what I'm choosing right now, but I shouldn't be projecting that onto you. You should get to have your own experience. So we've had a few of those conversations throughout the years. It's been good for us. We have a lot more
Yeah,
honesty in our family than we used to. So
that's really, really cool. So, how are you helping this podcast is doing it beautifully, but I know that you also have another passion project here and supporting women, going through divorce. So tell me more about the Red Room. I'm dying to know. First of all, I love the name of it.
yeah, isn't it delicious?
It's
Just want to put
so
your red
good,
dress
and it's
on and a
so
little red
intriguing
dress.
too. Yeah,
It's
like, I really
sensual.
wanna know what's in the Red Room. Yeah,
Sure.
tell me.
Well, the Red Room originated because I am a recovering good girl. Do you know what that is, Dr. Taryn?
Oh, I've been there too myself.
A lot of women have, right? Especially in our generation.
Yeah.
We weren't really allowed to be the sexual beings that, say, Gen Z women are,
Mm.
given
I
the
know.
freedom to
Aren't
feel
they
so.
spectacular? I
Oh,
admire them
they're so
so
fierce.
much.
I love that
That
generation. They're just
oh, it's
blowing it up.
incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, going again through my divorce and allowing myself to see dating differently, relationships differently, sex very differently, really allowed me the freedom to learn just how much I enjoy being a sexual being and trying new things and seeing sex as more of a, it's obviously an intimate connection. It's the most intimate connection you probably have with a human being, another human being, or with yourself, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a great creative experience, and I'm an artist, and so I allowed sex to be a little more creative and out of the box and exploratory, and having
Mm.
conversations with other women about what I was discovering was again incredibly freeing and led to so much happiness, Dr. Tarryn. So I decided, why not create an actual space where like-minded women who want to have these conversations with each other, kind of like a book club, but the focus is on sexual experiences, exploration, curiosity, learning, obviously just having a space where we can have experts. So there'll be sexperts coming into the red room to talk about different topics.
Oh, I love
And
it.
and again, having kind of a sacred space to explore, to feel safe, to not feel judged,
Mm.
to say what you really want to say about sex. I mean, women, when have we really been given permission until maybe recently to say what we really want to say without being judged?
That's beautiful. And the name of it reminded me of that book, The Red Tent. Do you remember that book?
Yes.
And
Yes, I did read that book, and that wasn't
uh,
the catalyst for the name, but I have read the book. I love that book.
well, the similarity in terms of a space to share an
Yes.
experience and also, to have some guidance, to have some
Right.
support, to have
Right.
some support for one another going through this journey. I love that. And so yes, I'm sure that there's many, many differences, but I love that that same feeling is evoked in the name, just in terms of support and guidance for one another. And like you said, a safe
Community.
space,
Unique
community.
community, I like to say. And it's not
Yeah.
just for divorced women, it's for single
Ah.
women, married women, anyone who identifies as a woman is welcome to be in the red room.
And once again, that whole idea of taking back your power.
Right.
In sexual encounters, women have always traditionally been seen as either victims, sometimes in unwanted situations, or just not being the aggressors or not being the instigators of sexual
Right,
encounters.
not
And so
desiring sexual experiences, being more passive.
absolutely. So what a great opportunity to take back that power again.
Yes, it is powerful being a sexual being. And
So
saying what
powerful.
you like and enjoy as a
Mhm.
sexual being, it's very powerful. Just like for a lot of divorced men I've had conversations with on my podcast about how they have found being an emotional being after divorce to be very powerful because they didn't give
Wow.
themselves permission to be that before their divorce, and they realized what a detriment that was to their relationships and to their own relationship with self and to, of course, their children as well.
Absolutely. Isn't that
It
fascinating?
is fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean,
So cool.
ultimately, we want to all be more fully human, right?
Mhm. Mm.
So,
That's beautiful. Well, so what challenges are you facing now, Sadie? What are your big obstacles that you're trying to overcome in your career or in your personal life?
the obstacle that I'm always trying to overcome is, how do I balance things? How do
Mm.
I balance being a business owner and having a podcast and wanting to be a good friend and wanting to be, again, a great mom as best as I can and wanting to really do my self-care? And it's always like, okay, how am I
Mm.
going to do this?
Mm.
And how do I show grace to myself in the process? Because I'm perfectly imperfect, and
Mm.
am learning all the time about my imperfections, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But I think for me, it's always that balancing, because I want to do and experience so many things, like so much of
Mm.
us. I'm sure the listeners nodding his or her head, like, yeah, we all want to have full, rich lives. And we're just one person. Sometimes I just wish I could clone myself,
Mm.
maybe three people,
Mm.
but I can't, clearly, and so it's always that balancing act, and again, going back to presence,
Mhm.
having those moments where I'm just being present and I'm not having to think about the next thing I have to do, the next email I have to send, the next, phone call I have to make, etc. So that doesn't go away even after divorce, but I do have more time for myself because I don't have my children full time, and of course I miss them when I don't have them, but I am grateful that I have more space for myself. I've really loved that. That's been amazing for me.
Once again, I just love your perspective always, trying to see and not just trying, but actually gratitude for what you do have. And, that desire for wanting to really taste that clementine and using that as a
Mm,
metaphor for everything,
yes.
being so present even in sex. I mean, that's
Yeah.
such a important part that for me was a big journey is my sex life got better when I got more present.
Yes.
Because I realized thinking of something else the whole time was taking me right out of that space
Right.
and
Right.
denying me that beauty. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah,
I haven't been in a traditional relationship since my marriage. So I'm curious once I am again
yeah,
practicing that presence more because I do think when you are with the same partner for a while, if I do choose monogamy again in my future, that can happen easily where you aren't always as present as you want to be. So I appreciate you sharing that today.
yeah, absolutely. And tell us, so we know one of your superpowers is this visionary entrepreneur artist. What is another superpower that we might not know about you?
Another superpower that you might
Mm.
not know about me, beyond
Mm.
my creativity, I would say this, Taryn, I love being a connector. I would say that's
Mm.
another superpower of mine. Meaning, when I get to know you better, I can't wait to introduce you to other people that need to meet
Mm.
you and who you need to meet. I love connecting people. I love, you know, my friend Tracy and my friend Stephanie now have been doing a podcast together for 2 years because they met at a party of mine and I
Very
connected them and they hit it off. I love when I can bring people together. And I think that's probably you could say the same. I think that's why I love doing a podcast because
yes.
it's a way of connecting people to others who they might not have ever met had they not
Mhm.
listened to your podcast or my podcast or another podcast.
Mm.
So that's one huge benefit that I've experienced by doing a podcast is just connecting others to
Yeah.
these incredible, inspiring stories. I love
So rewarding, so
mhm.
rewarding.
So
Absolutely.
much.
So before I ask you my final question,
Sure,
I'd love to connect you to my audience further. So all of
sure.
my audience members who are listening right now and would love to find you, we'll put all the links in the show notes. But if someone's driving home right now, how can we find you online?
Well, please visit my website, divorcedandhappy.net. All
Ah,
of my podcast episodes are on the website. You can access them. You don't have to worry about Spotify or iTunes or anything like that unless you enjoy Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. You can find Sadie's Divorced and Happy podcast on all of the podcast platforms. Also on my website, you can learn all about the Red Room, and absolutely, you can download my 8 tips to happiness. It's on the homepage of my website on the center in the center of the page, and that's a free download. So absolutely enjoy that. And then again, I'm on Instagram at Sadie's Divorced and Happy, and I'm on Facebook at Sadie's Divorced and Happy, and I'm on YouTube at Sadie's Divorced and Happy.
fabulous. So now share with us, please, what is your definition of happiness, Sadie?
Happiness for me now is just really all about love, loving others and loving myself. You did a podcast on love, and I listened to that, and that was just had so much resonance because happiness is when you have the freedom to just love yourself so deeply, love others so deeply. There's nothing richer, in my opinion, than love. And love is the greatest source of happiness to me. So for me, after my divorce, I just really learned how to love myself differently and that has led to so much happiness because it all starts with me. My
Oh.
happiness all starts with me, and if I can really love and accept myself, I'm unstoppable.
Love that. Love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your insight with us today. Thank you for sharing yourself with us
Oh,
today.
my pleasure.
And thank you for all that you do. And I cannot wait to just keep following you and seeing the great things that come out of this exciting red room.
Yes, the Red Room! It'll be
Thank
spicy and so fun.
I
So
love it. I love it.
join
Thank you
us.
so much for joining us today. And thank you for opening up your minds and your hearts to a new perspective. And I couldn't say it more beautifully than Sadie just said to us today that loving yourself is the most important piece of all of this. So thank you, Sadie.
Such a treat to be with you today and your listener. Thank you again for
Awesome.
the
Thank you.
invitation.
Have a fabulous day, my friends. Bye bye.